Good afternoon, folks. It is great to see you all. My name is Casey Halpern, not to be confused with Jory Jordan of the Sudbury Kids Sports Report, and I'm thrilled to host Profit Duel's Brackets, Bets, and Banter show as we get you set for March Madness. This show will feature two guests. Unfortunately, Bonnie Blue and Lily Phillips both had prior commitments, so they could not make it. But today's show will feature two sharps and one putt, myself. And I highly recommend you do not listen to a word that comes out of my mouth, but make sure your ears perk up just a bit extra when my guests are speaking. I am very excited to welcome my friend, colleague, sharp, Ryan Bornemann, and my good friend, Reed Wallach of Sports Illustrated and the Early Read podcast. Fellas, how's it hanging?
What's going on?
Happy to be here.
We love to hear that. It's a beautiful spring, I guess, fake spring day here in New York City. Got about 60 degrees and sun, and we got a lot of stuff on the horizon to get to. So I know there's a lot of bets we want to touch on, and got a packed agenda. But first off, I just want to say thanks to both of you for coming on, and just give a special shout out to the Profit Duel team for having us. There's a massive 50% off sale right now running on Profit Duel. You could get for a Profit Duel premium membership for just $49 a month or $249 for the year. Ryan and myself can speak to this, that this membership will pay for itself literally like 10 to 20x. So I highly recommend you take us up on that offer. It's an absolute steal. But fellas, I wanted to dive right in. Let's head to the West region. And before we just dive in, I just want to say, do not listen to me. Listen to Reed and Ryan. They are the smart folks when it comes to college basketball and just betting in general. I unfortunately, college basketball and me outside of Wisconsin, we don't get along, so I don't follow until March. But I'm ready. I'm dialed in. Let's head to the West region. Number 8 UConn versus number 9 Oklahoma. Reed, what do you think of this matchup?
Yeah, well, first, macro, I like to break all the regions out if we want to talk future or anything, but to me, I think the West region is the most difficult region for a team like Florida, who I think that's kind of the flavor of the week to pick as their national champion. I think Florida got kind of the hardest draw, maybe not the winner of this game, but going forward with teams like Maryland, Tech, and St. John's on the horizon. In this game in particular, though, I like the over quite a bit. UConn defense has fallen off a complete cliff. They also foul at an alarmingly high rate. I want to say they're bottom 100 in free throw rate allowed. Oklahoma, they have a stud guard in Jeremiah Fears. If you're tuning into the tournament for the first time, not familiar with these guys, Fears is a potential lottery pick. They also can't defend cutting actions at all. They're bottom 100 in the country in terms of cut points per possession allowed on cuts. That's obviously what Dan Hurley's offense wants to do. A lot of cuts. So I think maybe the pace isn't super high, but uber efficient half-court offense. I think this game flies over the total. So that's my pick on the side. And I don't really love either of these teams to make much noise, but maybe they could knock off Florida or something. It wouldn't be the craziest thing.
Ryan,
anything? Just to come up. I'll come off it. I don't have a pick necessarily in the game. I'm kind of just excited for this one because, like you said, I've been hearing a lot of buzz about Jeremiah Fears. I watched him play a little bit, and you kind of love watching the electric young players. He's a freshman, kind of a fearless freshman going at, UConn. It's been a big dog in the NCAA the last couple of years. So I'm kind of excited to see what he can do on the big stage against, blue blood and UConn. And then if they can get past UConn, what they can do against Florida and see if they can make some noise. I mean, Florida, I think, is kind of the wagon in this region. And it is a little bit of a tough matchup for them, but they've been playing really well, scoring a ton of points. So it's going to be tough, but yeah, I'm excited for this one just to get to see Fears matchup against this UConn team.
Well, I actually have a pick in this one.
Here we go.
I haven't alerted the boutique, which is my betting consulting firm, so they could take it right from the horse's mouth right here. Boomer Sooner, baby. Give me the 4.5 here. I'm a big Porter Moser fan. Reed, I think you know why. We had an old colleague named Jack Moser, so I just want to pay homage to that big dog. And I think Oklahoma has a good offense, and UConn's D is nothing like the last 2 years. And I think, I think it's very hard to three-peat, especially in college basketball. It's hard to go back to back. And I think Danny Hurley and co are on upset alert. He might be screaming at some officials, maybe at even some kids on his team. Who knows? That should be exciting. But sticking in the West region, One game that really catches my eye, and one game I already placed a bet on, a rather large wager on. Number 6, Mizzou versus number 11, Drake. Before I kick it to you both here, I'm not going to sit here and pretend I know anything about Drake, right? But my esteemed colleague, Jerry Seinfeld, once said, I love the Drake. How could you not love the Drake? And look, I have no choice but to follow the man to a winner. I do know that courtesy of Tim Hold at thold42 on Twitter, who's an excellent follow. He's the creator of The Sheet and does unreal work. He details how pace of play differences can really result in upsets, which is what we have here. Drake really wants to grind it out. They rank 364th in the nation in KenPom and adjusted tempo. I didn't even know there's 364 Division I college basketball teams. Okay. So give me the Drake plus 6.5. I'll probably take the money line as well. I'm already in for a couple units on the 6.5, but what do you think of this?
Yeah, I'm with you on Drake. Mizzou was a team I had circled as a fade in the first round, and Drake was a team. I don't even know if I was like crazy about betting them, but this matchup does, for all the points you just said. Mizzou, a bit of feast or famine, and Drake, look, this is going to be Drake's toughest matchup of the year, so maybe there is some sticker shock, and maybe we're underrating an SEC team like Missouri. But if Mizzou isn't able to get out and run and clean the glass, then they're in big trouble. And Drake, top 30 in the country in defensive rebounding rate. They play super slow, like you mentioned, Casey. I think like this has all the makings of an upset special. Also, Mark Mitchell, the Duke transfer, is arguably Mizzou's best player, was banged up in the SEC tournament. They said Dennis Gates, their coach, said he's fine, but I mean, who knows this time of year? So we'll see. But I'm with you on Drake being a live dog here. And I don't think like they're as trendy as you would think on the surface.
Yeah, look, if Jerry Seinfeld likes him, I got to like him.
Exactly.
That's as successful as it comes. Ryan, any thoughts on this matchup?
I'm kind of in the same boat as you here too. I mean, this is a mid-major Drake team that's won 30 games, and I mean, I think they've only lost 3 or 4 right now. And Mizzo is, to the points that Reed just made too, with one of their players potentially banged up from in the SEC tournament and them coming in. I think it's a good spot for the 6.5. I don't love the money line as much. I think Drake will keep this one close, but I think Mizzo still gets the job done here. But I do agree that I don't think it's as popular and sexy as a pick that as it might seem to you. But I would take Drake 6.5 here as well.
All right, so we're all in alignment on Drake getting the points. It seems that we've influenced a viewer. Reed Wrestler said he's adding Drake money line to his card. I like that. I'll be joining you. A little sprinkle doesn't hurt anyone. But let's move on a bit to the Midwest region. Now, this is a potential matchup that has caught my eye, and I really think the winner of this matchup might make some noise. Number 6, Illinois versus number 11, Texas and Xavier. I'm not sure how Texas made it. They are pretty May, but Xavier, I've got my eye on them. I think Xavier can make some noise because they have 2 things I look for in March. They got experience. They're their second most experienced team in the tournament behind Kansas, and they're the fourth best tourney team from the charity stripe. And look, college kids shooting free throws will drive you even crazier than Wisconsin sorority chicks. I mean, you could pull your hair out. There's a reason why I'm balding. It's because I've lost a lot of money on these college kids shooting poorly from the charity stripe. So this one catches my eye. I think Illinois is a bit of a little Jekyll and Hyde. I've caught a few of their games in the Big Ten. But I think if Xavier beats Texas tomorrow, I think the winner of that Illinois-Xavier matchup can potentially go to the Sweet 16 and maybe the Elite 8.
Yeah, I'm a little biased. From middle of the year, I have some Illinois future exposure, thinking that they would turn it around from 3, which they still haven't. They're outside the top 300 in three-point percentage, despite taking them at a top 30 clip. So I'm rooting for Illinois. I hope that they could go on a bit of a run. I agree with you on the point, though, that I think this little quad can the winner of this 6-11 game beats Kentucky, very likely Kentucky, in the round of 32 and get to the Sweet 16, where you face a Tennessee team that is also a bit hot and cold. So I actually like the idea, even if I'm not sure I agree with Xavier. As for a bet, I like Texas tomorrow night to at least cover the 3 against Xavier. Xavier really struggled to stay in front of guys. Isolation defense are really poor, and Texas ISO is at the highest rate in the entire country. Another future lottery pick, and Trey Johnson, he might give Xavier 30. tomorrow night in Dayton. So I kind of like Texas with the points in the first game, but I do agree with you. Like if Xavier gets through or Texas, I think that they could be live to go on a bit of a run here in the tournament.
I'm a little scared we're a bit aligned here, but Ryan, any thoughts on this matchup?
Well, I mean, I'll go right against Reed here too. I actually just was going through the slate earlier today, and one of the bets that I put in was Xavier to cover 2.5 against Texas. So this is our first disagreement, but I'm also a little bit in the same boat. Once they get through that game, I actually have Illinois in the brackets that I've done so far to go on a little run and actually beat Xavier and then beat Kentucky. And then also, I don't have them to beat Tennessee, but I think that's a good matchup. Like Illinois has the super talented guard. They kind of just haven't put it together completely this year, I don't think. And like you said, they haven't started to heat up like you expected and turned around. But I'm pretty sure that their guard is going to be a lottery pick this year, no?
Yeah.
And they have a super talented roster. I actually saw them play at Rutgers this year, and they kind of disappointed me, but I think they have the talent to kind of go on a run. And Kentucky in that next round is one of those fast-paced, high risk, high reward teams. So I think there's potential there for Illinois to go on a run. But back to the Xavier point, I do actually have Xavier minus 2.5 against Texas. I don't know how Texas got in here. I think that Xavier does take care of business in this game.
Well, look, I'm going to root for both of you here, so I just want to see a good game. But I wish you both a ton of luck. Whoever made the best putts win tomorrow. I anticipate a Xavier win, and then I like them over Illinois. So shout out to esteemed Xavier alum Joe Caputi. Go Musketeers. We'll see if Sean Miller sweats through a suit this March Madness. But now I want to just discuss two schools that hold a very special place in all of our hearts, our alma maters. So Reed and I did go to college together. Once upon a time, I might have been his pledge educator or whatever they call that now, if that still exists. There was no hazing involved. It was great. Ryan went to Clemson. So I first want to kick it to Ryan because I was stunned when I saw that Clemson ranks top 25 in both offensive and defensive efficiency. But then I recalled that they did make the Elite Eight last year. So can they make that next jump this year to the Final Four, a place they've never been before?
So Casey, it's an interesting one, right? I think that they have in the region that they're set up in, I think they have a very tough matchup in McNeese. They play very similar styles of basketball. I think that Clemson is a little bit better than they are. But I think also the matchup after that, the Purdue High Point, that those two teams are also two teams that match up well against Clemson. It's going to be tough for them to make a run. So I'm kind of in the boat right now where they could lose the first round or they could take down Houston and go all the way to the Elite Eight again. So I kind of want to see what Reed thinks as a non-biased bystander here on this Clemson team and where we are. They had a big loss actually. Unfortunately, Dylan Hunter went down with broken hands in their first round of ACC play, which proved to be a pretty big loss against Louisville. They just did not look like the same team on that floor. They fought kind of at the ends and came back in that game, but they're going to have a couple guys really step up in March. They pretty much had a solidified 5 guys in their rotation, and then they rotated in whoever the hot hand was after that. And now one of those hot hands has to be in the starting lineup and playing all the time, which makes it a little bit tough. You don't get to, plug and play with your rotations as much. So that was definitely a big loss for them. So I'm definitely very excited and curious to see, after the week of practice, what it looks like and who does or doesn't step up. So I'm going to kick it to you, Reed, to what you think about them.
Yeah, I'm pretty pissed about the Hunter injury because I had some future exposure on Clemson. I took a nibble at their Final Four price like a month ago. Yeah, because I think obviously the injury throws this into flux. Hunter, you could argue, is their best point of attack defender. So this is obviously a big loss. I think the bracket they drew is probably as good as you could ask for being a 5 seed. I think they're fine against McNeese. I bet them to cover the 7, cheap 7.5 is totally fine. I think Clemson covers that. And then whether you play Purdue or High Point, Purdue since February 16th, so about a month, is the second worst 2-point percentage defense in the entire country. So I think Clemson could kind of just absolutely, I think Purdue's kind of running on fumes here. Obviously, they're right for an upset against.
Pump the brakes there. You're assuming Purdue gets out of round 1 which we'll get to very shortly.
No certainties with Matt Painter and no Zach Edey to bail him out. But so I think Clemson, I still think they get to the second weekend. It's can they match up with like a Houston or something? Why I like Clemson is they're much more well-balanced this season. I think they improved. I was kind of not a huge PJ Hall defender. I like Victor Locken a lot more. I think he's a much better rim protector and could stretch the floor. So look, without Hunter, maybe this all is like a house of cards and it falls apart. But I still think Clemson is live for a bit of a run. And if they do play Houston, it's an interesting matchup because Clemson plays just as slow as Houston. Both teams are bottom 30 in adjusted tempo. Both teams shoot really well from three. So it's kind of like they're two similar styles of play. Could just come down to who runs hot from three. And look, like if you got to, can Clemson do that? Yeah, on a given day. Why not? So they did it last year. I think that maybe that wasn't a one-trick pony and maybe Brad Brownell is onto something with Clemson. So I think the Tigers could still go pretty far.
All right. Well, they are.
Yeah, no, and go ahead, Casey.
They are 14-1 to make the Final Four. I was looking at it. Admittedly, I had no idea Dylan Hunter broke his hand, nor did I know who that was before this 5 minutes ago. But look, this is why I'm the Putz. You two are the Sharps. So you're educating me. You're educating the viewers at home. So I appreciate that. But go ahead, Ryan. Finish.
He is the younger brother of Clemson's best player, Chase Hunter. And, he's their best scorer, first team all ACC this year. And he worked his way into the starting lineup kind of midway through the year. And now they're essentially going to have to revert back to the guys who started out the season and got moved to the bench at that point. But it might be my own skepticism with, seeing Clemson over the last couple of years where I'm, feeling like there's a potentially that they will not make it as far. But I would agree with you where I said they could lose first round. They also did probably get the best draw that they could have got for having to face a 1 seed. Like, I don't think they match up well with the Auburns. They beat Duke at home, but at Duke again that early would be a really tough matchup. And the Floridas of the world, the Marylands, like I think getting Purdue and Houston where we were talking about, they play that similar style and they just are going to have to do it a little bit better than them that day. That could easily happen. But I could also see, it's the other way, like we just said, where everything falls apart with the injury and they just kind of can't come back from that.
All right. Well,
I'm hoping. I took a nibble at their Final Four price a while ago too, and it did not age in my favor because of this, but I'm hopeful.
We'll see what happens. On to our beloved Badgers, Reed. I think it could go to one or two ways here. I think they could actually probably get upset in the round of 64. I think playing 4 games in 4 days and then going to play at a high altitude city is a bit concerning. I think that, actually, I don't think this, but I know for a fact I happened to play golf in late December with a big booster at Wisconsin. This is by complete happenstance, by the way. Me and him rode in the cart, and he actually told me to my face that if Greg Gard and the Badgers do not get out of the first weekend, he probably will be fired. More likely than not. Look, I believe him. He's got some deep pockets. He's got some really interesting ties. And when I was grinding the tape and just kind of reminiscing on some of the good old Badgers basketball days, I realized that it seems crazy to me, but we haven't made the second weekend in 8 years. 2017 was the last time. If you recall, we were in the Puerto Vallarta bar watching that disaster of a collapse against Florida in the Sweet 16 when Chris Chiozza hit that absurd shot because Nigel Hayes refused to play any defense. Yeah, it's been 8 years since we've gone to the second weekend. And in 2017, that team was basically Bo Ryan's recruit still. So I don't know. I've got my eye on this one because if there is an upset, I think some things might get shaken up in that beautiful city of Madison. So, but then again, if they do win, I do think they get to the Elite Eight and face Duke for a trip to the Final Four. Yeah,
we were just talking about Clemson getting a pretty good run out for their bracket. I think Wisconsin got kind of hosed here. First, just looking at where they're going, you mentioned, Casey, 4 games in 4 days in the Big Ten tournament. A few like real high leverage, high intensity games like against Michigan State and against Michigan. They're now going out to altitude to play a Montana team that is well equipped there, to play either a VCU team that honestly might be like a top 3 defense in the country, or a BYU team that kind of profile similar to a Wisconsin team and is also acclimated to altitude. So kind of a minefield for the Badgers. That being said, I do think that this is the best team Greg Gard has had in maybe ever, like his full tenure.
I agree.
I think this is better than the Johnny Davis teams because that was all Johnny Davis. This is, yes, John Tanji, who was second team All-American, but this whole team is all swimming in the same direction, all play super well, great complementary basketball. I think they should be Montana pretty good. We've seen a pretty clear trend that Big Sky teams get kind of just absolutely destroyed once they get to the tournament, just not a good matchup. So I think Wisconsin can handle Montana. It's the next game that's where I run into trouble, whether it's BYU and what's probably going to be, a possession spread. I would say, you're probably looking at Wisconsin minus 1.5, or if it's VCU, you're probably looking at, again, like Wisconsin minus 2.5 because you have to upgrade VCU. So going to be a tight run here. I don't think Greg Gard's on the hot seat at all, given what he's done here, but I mean, I'm kind of used to Wisconsin dropping the ball in the tournament. That's how this all seems to go, right? So we'll see. But I do think they match up pretty good for the first round.
I agree. Look, I don't think he's going to get fired, but I'm just relaying what I was told here. Don't shoot the messenger. So it wouldn't surprise me, I guess.
How'd you play that day, though? Did you show up in front of the booster?
It was an absolute stripe show I was putting on for him. Absolute stripe show. Irons were dialed like Willie Z at the players before he quad bogeyed. Let's preface that part. But yeah, we could talk about my golf game sometime in the next few weeks. But let's get past this and then let's talk about our favorite underdogs to pull the upset in round one. I'll let you guys go first because I've got quite an interesting one here, and it's more of a system play, but I'll let you guys take the floor.
Right. All right. Well, I'm going to actually start out. They're not, it's the team that I'm going with right now is UNC. They're obviously a favorite tonight in their first 4 game, but I think that if they get in against Ole Miss, I think it's going to be, I want to say I'm going to guess probably 1.5, 2.5 Ole Miss's way in that game. And I think UNC is a dog that they just got in the tournament. Obviously they had that crazy little screw up against Duke in the ACC tournament where they got a lane violation. But I like them to make a little bit of noise if they get through this first round game tonight. And I think they have a good matchup against Ole Miss and they could kind of make some noise from there. So that's my one dog that I'm looking at. Obviously, not a lot of ACC teams in play, so I'm also a little biased here. I rooting for some of those teams. But yeah, I think that's my dog to start out. I have a couple more that we'll dive into, but I'm going to kick it to Reed for what he's got on his first dog.
Yeah, really trendy, but I've been backing this team all year, so I got to trust them. It's honestly like probably as good of a matchup as you could ask for, but UC San Diego, I know it's only like 2.5. There's really good reason for this team to be a really slight underdog to Michigan. We were just talking about Wisconsin. Now, same thing for Michigan. They got to travel out west, take on a team like UC San Diego that 30-4, but this team has been a cash cow all year. They went on basically a 5-week stretch of covering every single game, and I've been just blind betting them. They literally covered every single game before the last 2 of the regular season. They also are a really bad matchup for Michigan. First, they run a lot of zone, so they could negate some of the issues that Michigan has with their size with Golden and Wolf. Also, number 2 in the country in turnover rate. Michigan checks in 328th in protecting the rock. So, and just an absolute nightmare. Michigan super sloppy with the ball. And I think UC San Diego is right to go nuclear from 3. Really sweet shooting team, awesome offense. They play like super modern basketball where they space 5 guys out. So I like UC San Diego to pull the minor upset, even though the seeding is way off. I think that this is as good of a matchup you can ask for.
I like that. I would look, Michigan losing, I think, would be hilarious for a number of reasons. I have a lot of good friends that went to the school, and they're very arrogant and pompous. And I also think it would be a great loss because our mutual friend, Mr. Willie, he's now coined himself as a Michigan husband, soon to be. So the fact that he's now on board with the Wolverines, I hope they go down.
That's unfortunate because he's disaffiliating, it seems like, from a school that seems to be pretty good in Maryland. So I think he's jumping ship at the wrong time.
Look, I guess that kid can't stick to his roots. What can we say? Reed, I think you know who I'm going to go with here, and this is complete. I'm flying blind here. This is as system of a play as it gets. Give me a high point money line plus 300 for the limit. I don't care. I don't like Matt Painter. It's well documented. I think he's a moron. I think he's been bailed out by just having a 7-3 center and a really fast guard back in the day with Carson Edwards. But yeah, I'm taking High Point for no other rhyme or reason than I can't stand Matt Painter. I do want to thank him for producing his son, Curtis Painter. If many recall, he's the reason why the New York Jets snuck into the playoffs in 2009 when Peyton Manning was benched in the second half of that game. So, yeah, give me a High Point money line. Don't actually take it for the limit. Just sprinkle on it. We don't like Matt Painter here. He's a putz. And this brings me to our next segment, our most confident round one bet, side, money line, or total. Where I'm going here is I'm going to go grab a cocktail. I'm not going to drive, though. So Mark Few, just take some notes. Give me the Gonzaga Bulldogs. I'll lay the 6. My reasoning is simple. I think Georgia is a red flag team on Tim Holt's sheet. Go buy it for $10, read it, and find out exactly why they are a red flag team. But I think Gonzaga was completely underseeded here. They did get shafted. I think their underlying metrics prove they are a much better team than an 8 seed, right? Or whatever they are. Mm-hmm. So give me the Bulldogs laying 6. I think Georgia's a bit overrated. They've got some bright red flags on them that are just screaming at me. And I think Gonzaga's experienced. Mark Few's a really good coach. And look, they hit their foul shots, which we all know is key come March. So what's your guys' locks in round one?
It's funny, Casey. I actually was going to say Gonzaga -5.5. So I'll have to pivot here because I'm going to want to pick something different than you. But we've talked a little bit about the two teams that I do like, and it's in these. I guess I'm going to skip out on the round one because it was my two first 4 teams in Xavier and UNC. Those are the first 2 plays that I like the best. The other one that I like is actually Colorado State money line, who's the 12 seed favorite over Memphis at the current moment. I don't have any advanced stats for you on it, to be honest with you. This is just a play based on them being a favorite over the 5 seed here. I got a decent price on it when I put it in a couple days ago when it came out, and I'm happy with where I have it. And I think that they're going to take care of business in this matchup. They've been playing good basketball recently. They're in. I watch some of the TikToks about the stuff, and they're in the little trapezoid of excellence and all that. But this is just strictly on the line here and seeing that they're a favorite over the 5 seed. I'm taking them in this matchup.
Yeah, and to help your point, Tyrese Hunter, their starting point guard, up in the air if he's going to be available for this game, however long. So Memphis could be going in shorthanded. So I think the market knows that, but it doesn't hurt.
Speaking of TikToks, Ryan, I forgot to ask you this before, but Clemson versus McNeese State. Are we worried about the moxie that the McNeese State manager brings? Are you guys familiar with him? I forget his name, but this guy's an electric factory, and I think he could he might be an extra point to the spread here come Thursday or Friday. I don't even know when they play.
I believe he has an NIL deal also. So
I think he's got quite a few. That guy's rolling in the dough. So good for that cat. It looks like he's having the time of his life, like Sergio Dip. Reed,
that might be why they have a little bit of more buzz going around him in this game, and maybe why I'm a little bit more scared, honestly, than I should be. And Reed's just over here super confident that we're gonna cover whatever line that we get.
For me, I kind of hinted at it, but Casey, you're fading Purdue outright. I think for High Point to win, that means Purdue's offense or defense continues to be a leaky faucet. So I like the over 153.5. I know super high, but I think High Point Purdue are ripe for an absolute shootout. Gonna be a lot of fouling too. So big parade at the free throw line. So give me over 153.5. Purdue, you look at how they closed the year out. They should have definitely went over in the Big Ten tournament, both games against USC and Michigan. They did in the second game against Michigan. But you look at some of their games to close out the season, 168 against Illinois, 171 against Rutgers. So this team has been an over team going into the tournament. And they're taking on a High Point team that's 12th in effective field goal percentage. So I think they could punish Purdue at the rim, and I think Purdue should get their own as well. So I have the over there.
All right. Well, before
highest totals on the board, right?
Yeah, that's super high. I think there's like 3 or 4 totals like over like 150, and this is one of them. But I gotta go
Bama
over.
is too. Yeah. I was looking at that before, and I was like, I didn't see a lot of the totals. There wasn't too many totals over the 150s and the 160s. I think Bama's the only one in 160s, and those had caught my eye earlier just because I saw that there was just not too many games in the 150s, and that was one I looked at, and I was like, oh wow.
Well,
And then
I would love a
now you bring it
little.
on the show, a little bit of research.
I would
What's
like
up?
a back and forth slugfest. Hopefully, High Point can win it. Jesse F said, "Great campus. They got a lazy river." I have no idea what university they're talking about, but it sounds
I'm
awesome to
assuming.
me. Would love to get out there. So thanks, Jesse F, for chiming in. But
If it's High Point and they win on the money line, you might owe a trip to
Yeah,
to North
Well,
everyone's
Carolina.
going.
you know,
Yeah.
I got to see how the girls look there first before I'm going to any college towns. But
I'm hoping that he means the High Point campus because I really don't think it's that warm in Purdue most of the
been
time.
clarified. We've got breaking news. It is High Point, so maybe we'll check it out. We'll table that. They first have to win. All right, we're almost done here. I've got my notepad just like Rusilla. I've been grinding the tape. So I want to talk before we get into our Final Four and national champs. I want to just talk some available promos, and this is where Profit Tool comes in, where we basically teach you how to turn the promos into guaranteed cash. For starters, if you're in New York where the promos aren't as great, Resorts World, which I didn't even know was still in existence here in New York, they have a bet 250, get $250 match right now. So you can make an easy $170 and add that to your bankroll if you're into that sort of thing. If you want to find out exactly how to do that, hit myself or Ryan up on Twitter, hit up the Profit Duel Twitter account and get yourself a $1 trial. But Ryan, is there a specific promo in New Jersey that maybe caught your eye that you encourage folks to look at?
I would say the BetMGM offer is back up to its risk-free $1,500, and that's one of the bigger offers on the table right now. So you should be able to lock in around $750 on that promotion just using Profitable. And a couple of weeks ago, that promotion was all the way down to I think it was bet 5 get 100. So the profits there are only about $50 as opposed to 100 or $750. So I think that's one that you definitely should take a look at and get a BetMGM account if you have not yet, and get started for March Madness using Profitable, and you can lock in some easy profits right out the gate.
I love it. Before I talk Final Four national champ, I forgot to ask you this, Reed, but being that you are marrying a lovely woman from the University of Maryland, how do you feel about the Terps going into the tournament?
Yeah, Maryland, one of the teams I've kind of liked all year, Crab 5. They don't have much of a bench, but I do think that if there is a team that could potentially upend Florida, or I kind of mentioned that I think that Florida, who knows if maybe they stumble ahead of that game, but I think Maryland got a pretty decent run out. Team has super high upside, and maybe the team has like a close game issue. They've lost, I want to say it's like 4 of their 8 games in the last like 5 seconds or something. I don't think they've lost a game by more than 6. So it's a tough team to beat. Hopefully they could avoid foul trouble and go on a run here. That first game against Grand Canyon is a little tricky, but I like Maryland in either against Memphis or Colorado State. So as long as they get through their game against Grand Canyon, should be in the second weekend. So we'll see. So I'm not a Maryland husband. I'm still a Wisconsin male, but I like Maryland this year for sure.
Way to stand your ground, unlike some people we know.
Yeah.
Jerry Friedman said the Crab 5 is going to run through the region of death. # early readers know. I would like to see that happen. I'm rooting for the Terps. I like the Terps. I've got a bunch of good friends from the university. College Park's an interesting town. But Eric Charles has just chimed in the comments. We have to factor in Grand Canyon's women's basketball coach. That is an excellent point, Eric. She looks like an older Livy Dunn. She is beautiful. Unfortunately, she doesn't coach the men's team. Does this men's team still shoot like it's a rock fight? Because I bet on them last year.
Mm-hmm.
Watching them play, I think was it Alabama? I think I took them spread and money line, and it was basically like I was baffled that this team was in the NCAA tournament. It wasn't kind of a trendy underdog pick. And I couldn't believe that I actually spent my real hard-earned money on them to cover but win.
Yeah, they covered and blew out St. Mary's in the first game, and then they turned around and played Bama on I think it was Sunday night. It was one of the later games, and they led early and then completely fell apart. I don't think they covered the spread either in the second game. But yeah, they play a similar style of basketball. They're going to try and get to the free throw line. So that's why it's kind of nervy with a team without a lot of depth like Maryland, but they're not as good as last year. So look, like if they show up, maybe they can channel that, but it's definitely a worse version of last year's team. So I think Maryland will be okay, but it's a weird game with how often they get to the free throw line. That could make it like a weird choppy game that like goes for 3 hours and is a disaster similar to the one that they played against Alabama last year.
All right, we'll see if the Crab Five can do it. But I was considering them for the Final Four, which is a perfect segue. All right, let's do our last predictions, and then we'll wrap up and send everyone home packing to enjoy tonight's first two games. So, Final Four national champ, Reed, who you got?
Final Four, I'll go from the top left, top right, bottom right. I'm not confident at all in the South region, but I guess for posterity's sake, I'll take Auburn. No, I'm not confident at all in that. In the West, I'm going to take Texas Tech. I think that's my contrarian Final Four pick this year. In the Midwest, I'll take another one where I could see it maybe getting blown up, but I'll go with Houston and then Duke out of the East. And then I have Duke taking down Texas Tech in the national championship. So I think that we're not going to see a lot of upsets early in the tournament. And then maybe as we get a little bit closer in the round of 32, Sweet 16, stuff like that, I think the gap is much closer together. So I think you could see some things get a little crazy, but I do ultimately think like if I were to like the one seeds are rightfully the one seeds and clearly the best teams. So I don't think it gets too insane. So Auburn, Tech, Houston, and Duke in the Final Four, with Duke beating Texas Tech.
Ryan, what about you?
I'll go same way as Reed here, and I have Auburn coming out of the top as well. I don't really know if I love it either, but I don't really think I love it. I don't love the Michigan State, the Iowa States, and the Michigans in that division. I think Auburn is clearly the best team. It's just if they can kind of prove it in that division, in my opinion. I'm not going to go contrarian on the bottom. I think Florida's playing their best basketball right now, and I think that they're going to keep that rolling into the tournament. I guess I'm going to go a little bit contrarian in the top right now. I have Alabama in the Final Four in the top right. To be honest with you, the last 7 years when Alabama got their new coach Nate Oates, I've been on them to win the tournament early on in the year, and I'm still on them again this year. It hasn't happened yet, and I'm really hoping that this is the year that it pays dividends for me. But who knows? They play that super high-paced, high-volume 3-point shot game, and they can lose to anyone, but then they can come in there and knock the doors off other teams. And they haven't played great of recent, so hoping that they kick up this tournament and really get hot. And then in the bottom, I have Tennessee coming out of the bottom to play Alabama. I think Houston and Tennessee both don't play a crazy fast-paced game, but I think if they both get to the Elite Eight there, I think Tennessee takes them down. And then my championship is Florida versus Alabama, and we're gonna go with Alabama. Like I just said, I'm riding them till the wheels fall off. I might never make any money or win any brackets with it, but that's what I'm gonna keep doing at this point until they're terrible again.
I like the outlook. Tennessee in the Final Four. Rick Barnes. I don't know.
I did that last year with.
I lived in Knoxville. I have a little bias.
That's fair. You did live in Knoxville, not just playing with fire, but look, that's what we like to do here. I can't stomach that. Rick Barnes. I could see them honestly losing in like in the second round. I think they would play UCLA or something like that, or I don't remember, but I think so.
UCLA, Utah State, one of the two.
Yeah. So they'd play UCLA. I don't know. I would like Mick Cronin's bunch there. I like how he gets on his guys. Honestly, I know that's not for everyone, but I like his style of coaching. His father, Hep. Hopefully, he's still around. That guy's epic. I like that guy. He's a cool cat. I like when they showed him throughout their Final Four run 4 years ago now. So go Bruins. But my Final Four national champ, it's pretty chalky. I honestly think there's a massive disparity in a lot of these teams, and I think that's a result of NIL and just the modern kind of college sports era. So I'm a little biased here, but give me Auburn, give me Florida, give me Duke, all coached by tremendous Jewish individuals. So happy about that. And give me Gonzaga. Those are my
It's a wild switch up.
Talking into taking an 8 seed at the end.
Yeah, look, I think it's going to be a little chalky. I'm going to eat the chalk. I'm not going to win my bracket. I probably won't even hit one of these. But look, I've been on Florida from before the SEC tournament. I actually parlayed Florida to win it all, the national championship with Rory at the Players. So I still have that live. I mean, I didn't do it for a lot of money, but it's something.
That's pretty good.
So
Rory pre-flop?
What?
Rory pre-flop?
No, it was, I think, after 36 holes.
That's impressive, Casey.
Still works.
Yeah, I mean, look, I would have liked the Zalatoris outright more than the Rory and Florida parlay, because that was really nice, and that would really a superb bankroll going into March Madness. But we all saw what he did on the back nine on Saturday. But yeah, I'll continue to go down with the Zally ship. But yeah, give me the Gators. I like Todd Golden. I think he's an incredible basketball coach. I really think they're deep. They're really good on offense and defense. And I think Walter Clayton Jr. is going to lead them to the promised land. So that's my pick. It's been my pick for a few weeks now. I'm going to stick with it. Go Gators. Hopefully we'll get some Tim Tebow sightings. Yeah. And that's our show, folks. Reed, Ryan, what do you guys have to promote before we head off?
Yeah, you can check out my work over at SI. Got a bunch of college basketball content I've been rolling out all week, so check that out. And follow me on Twitter at Reed Wallach. You can find a bunch of my musings during the upcoming weeks and beyond.
Yeah, I mean, just for me, you can just follow me on Twitter at rborn22. I kind of go by Reb on there. That's just my initials. And then also sign up and get a look at Profit Duel. And that's kind of where I'm at. With all that. And my other note is that I'll be in Vegas for the first round, for the round of 64 and the round of 32. So I'm very excited about that. It's my first time out in Vegas for March Madness. So I will be playing high point for the limit and then Venmo requesting Casey when it does not hit to make sure that I can pay for the rest of my weekend while I'm out there.
I don't know if you can write that one off as a business expense, but we'll talk to HR. I appreciate you guys hopping on. You could find myself. You don't want to follow me, so don't worry about it. But I appreciate this. If anyone's in New York City and ever sees me out and wants to grab a bevy, let's do it. Cheers. All right. Thanks, everyone.